I believe that there's a world in which I could finally eat Brutus Buckeye. That's what I'm realizing right now, is that is now a dream of mine.
Delicious.
And dreams do come true. This might be my favorite episode of the Rivalry Podcast.
I quit.
In 5 or 6 years of doing this. I'm Jace. That's JP. It's Michigan. It's Ohio State, your garbage-free college football podcast. Subscribe wherever you're listening right now on social media, including watching on YouTube at Rival Pod. We'll break the ice with our wheel route thanks to the J Company. Fall in love with your home all over again at the JAE Company.
Whatever the Schoonover Industries.
Favorite bowl game of 2023.
This has to be.
Michigan
Okay, no.
and Alabama.
Okay. We know you're going to say that. So pick something else. Be a little bit more creative.
Missouri and Ohio State.
Okay.
Was my favorite bowl game of 2023.
I'm not even going to ask why, because that's just.
Do you know why?
The least creative thing you could have said, because how dare you disrespect our king, the Pop-Tart mascot, because the Pop-Tart Bowl was leaps and bounds the greatest bowl game. It wasn't the greatest game, but the greatest bowl game of maybe all time.
Well, in the first, as far as I know, the first edible mascot that we've ever had.
Which is weird. How did they do that?
I don't know, man.
I don't know if I want to know, but
I don't know if they replaced the actual Pop-Tart mascot with a lookalike that had the edible frosting thing.
I think
that has to be right, because it would have melted off or something.
Yeah, there's no way that he goes the entire game with it definitely looked like plastic underneath of it for the jam or whatever filling. And then the top part was like a cake. There's no way that would have stayed on for an entire game with him dancing and jumping around.
I love it though, because this has taken the. We say things like the bowl season doesn't matter anymore, then you watch a Pop-Tart get eaten, and you go, man,
look.
This is what the founding fathers would have wanted. If Thomas Jefferson were alive right now, he would have loved the Pop-Tart Bowl.
There are two things that I walked away from.
Also dentistry.
There are two things I walked away from this past bowl season, and I thought, here's a swing and a miss, and here's a home run. Pop-Tart Bowl, home run. Whoever did the marketing for that thought, I need a giant Pop-Tart to not only be the mascot, but also be edible, but also hold a sign that says dreams really do come true as it goes into a toaster at the end of the game. Amazing. And a huge failure for KFC to not have one called the Famous Bowl. Yeah. Just feels like a missed opportunity.
Well, and I'll throw in there the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, where you have the Cheez-It mascot, and he has a little sign that says not an edible mascot. It's
no, you're trying too hard.
Well, I'm throwing that in there as you missed an opportunity. Once you've seen a mascot get eaten, any other mascot that can't be eaten immediately, it's
not the same. It's not, and it can only if Pop-Tart Man comes back next year and does the same thing. It's still amazing. But if somebody else comes out with it,
don't change
no.
You don't have to change.
You have found the recipe. It ain't broke. Don't fix it.
The other thing that they took from us was, do you remember the Bloomin' Onion mascot guy?
I do. Wasn't that whoever one side won, you got a Bloomin' Onion.
Yeah,
the other side won.
There's free coconut shrimp or something.
Yeah.
I missed that. But if you bring that back now, it's got to be actual
something good.
Bloomin' Onion and coconut shrimp stuff. So we've just unlocked a world of possibilities here. I believe that there's a world in which I could finally eat Brutus Buckeye. That's what I'm realizing right now, is that is now a dream of mine.
Delicious.
And dreams do come true. So anyway, bowl season very much matters. But before we get into Ohio State and Michigan, there's another bowl that we do need to recognize. Number one, first of all, hats off to our boys at UTSA and Meep Meep Nation, birds up for getting their win. But I know that you are pumped about another one as well.
Look, man, Rutgers beating Miami, and I loved it. I was watching a majority of it, and then my wife and I had tickets to something in our town that night, which happened to be right in the middle of the fourth quarter. And so I'm sitting there, and she's like, all right, we got to get ready to go. Our appointment thing for this is at 5. It was a walkthrough of a little garden area for Christmas. They had lights and everything. It's 5 minutes from our house. And we had to leave right when it was getting crucial. And so was I on my phone on the Hulu app watching the game as we walked through these lights? Absolutely. And was I chanting and screaming when we won? Absolutely. Rutgers beat Miami. What a nice way to finish the season. And they won a bowl game before Michigan State. So
which bowl game was Michigan State in?
The Toilet Bowl, because
it's weird. I heard from a lot of Michigan State accounts about late third quarter in that Alabama game, and then they disappeared.
You want to know what's weird though? I get the Ohio State fans talking trash to Michigan because they were at least a good team. You know, Ohio State made a bowl game.
Michigan State.
But Michigan State, you do not have a seat at the table. You just don't. You didn't even make a bowl game.
You're at the kids' table.
Yeah, you're at the kids' table still. This is big boy talk.
You have to have qualified for a bowl game in the last 2 years.
You have to at least not get blown out by 50 points when you play an opponent to be able to talk trash to them. It just doesn't. You just can't.
We do want to say a big thanks for another season of the podcast to our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction. Aaron Carroll and his team, phenomenal job as you head into 2024. You're looking at doing a home build, business build, church build. Elevated Integrity can help with that. They'll help you design it, and there's no guesswork. Integrity is in the name. Go with integrity at elevatedintegrity.com. Speaking of guesswork, trying to put together a roster for Ohio State's 2024 campaign is getting a little bit more difficult because this is something I do want to hit on before we even talk about Mizzou, is we've tried to be pretty balanced in the whole, kids are going to hit the portal, the sky's not falling, yada, yada. Ohio State keeps losing some pieces that looked like they were going to get starting roles in the future. And I'm thinking particularly of Noah Brown. I know Rutgers hit the portal as well. Jesse Mirko's in the portal. How does that feel as a Buckeye fan? Like, is there concern there? And I know you and I probably disagree on this.
Yeah, not yet. Not yet.
Let me ask it this way. What would cause you concern at this point? Because in particular, Noah Brown being a 5-star receiver.
Noah Rogers?
Whatever. No, Noah Brown, right?
No, it's Noah Rogers.
Isn't there a Brown
Noah Brown
as well?
is a wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys.
Did he play for Ohio State too?
Or for the Texans.
Did
Yes,
he play for Ohio State too? Stop. What is with all these?
He's the one that had the catch over the Oklahoma defender that caught it on his back.
See, I don't even know who he is. But does that concern you at all? As losing a 5-star recruit like that?
It doesn't in that position group. I think if this was a 5-star guy from maybe an offensive line, a defensive line, or something like that. I also have been kind of surprised so far a little bit with some of the stuff I'm hearing from Ohio State. Obviously, none of this has been told for fact yet, but I've heard that Emeka's coming back. I've heard Jack Sawyer's coming back, which kind of surprised me. No. I don't think Jack Sawyer is a first-round talent like I think JTT would be, and so it would surprise me if Tuamoloau comes back, but it's not off the table. It's looking likely that Ibuka is back. It's looking likely that Jack Sawyer's back. You've got guys that I thought for sure would be gone. Why does that
look likely? Like a genuine
question. They said
it.
Jack Sawyer basically came out and said, I'm coming back next year. It's most likely. Emeka Ibuka, I think, playing in the bowl game was kind of a sign for him as well. And there's also been reports, nothing obviously factual, from insiders, whatever you want to consider that, saying that Emeka's coming back. So I guess in my mind, this was already going to be a young wide receiver group. Emeka, if he comes back, is the lead veteran. The thing that hurt more than Noah Rogers leaving is Julian Fleming. I will admit, Julian Fleming feels like a loss to me. I just don't know. It's tough to say. I don't want to sit here and say Noah Rogers leaving isn't a big deal because who knows what his potential is. He was a 5-star on one site, a 4-star on a majority of the other ones. I don't really care what your stars are. He didn't record any stats at Ohio State. Right. It's up in the air. It's all potential. It's the same thing with what I'm going to say with the incoming guys, because to me, you have Jeremiah Smith, you've got Mylan Graham, you have Brandon Ennis, Carnell Tate, Emeka Ibuka. There's 5 guys right there where I would say Emeka, I would say Carnell Tate, for sure better than Noah Rogers right now because they were getting playing time. Brandon Ennis, I even got a little bit of playing time over him. So I would say if I'm going off and I'm trusting the staff, which I trust Brian Hartline, I would say those 3 guys are a step ahead of him. From everything that's rumored with Jeremiah Smith, I would say he's probably ahead of him. So I'm not trying to discredit Noah Rogers by any means. I still hope that he goes out and is a stud receiver. But it's just hard to say when a guy comes in and all you have to look at are, well, he was a 5-star prospect. But you just don't know.
But even with the guys who have some stat line, you have no idea if Brandon Ennis is actually the real deal. Well, you don't know if Carnell Tate's the real deal.
But I would say that wouldn't change even with Noah Rogers. So to me, if you're basing it off potential,
the depth becomes an issue though, because again, and you're also assuming that Ibuka's coming back. That's a massive assumption.
Even if he doesn't, it's still a 4 receiver group that sure is inexperienced, but they have the same level of whatever you want to call it.
It's inexperienced. It's untested. I think it's a bigger concern than you're probably letting on. Maybe not to you, but I'm saying like in fact, I think it's a bigger concern. The other issue, and probably the more pertinent issue, is that Ohio State has an atrocious offensive line and no quarterback.
And that's what I'm ultimately getting at is if I'm going to worry about a single position group at Ohio State, wide receiver ain't one of them.
I think that I would say that's a fair assessment.
And so while I would love to see Julian Fleming, while I would love to have seen Noah Rogers stay,
you obviously get a huge boost if Igbukah comes back.
Yeah, if Igbukah comes back,
which
I feel like
recording on a Monday morning.
Yeah,
so if
who knows?
If by Thursday you're like, you guys are idiots, yes, but not because of that.
Yeah, I mean, fair.
Yeah.
And so to me, it depends on stuff like that. But I think they've also got guys coming in. I forget. There's another 4-star receiver that they got in the Jeremiah Smith class that's coming in. I want to say his name's McClelland or something like that. That sounds like a made up thing, but it's real. And then they've got a couple of really good tight ends, young guys. It's going to be inexperienced. Nothing was going to change that. Even with Igbukah coming back, it's still an inexperienced group. You're going off potential. It's tough to say. But I'll start worrying, and the positions I've been worried about are the quarterback position and the offensive line. I don't think anywhere else truly scares me. I saw Michael Hall declared for the draft, so he's gone. Tommy Eichenberg didn't play. He's going to be gone. Marvin Harrison's gone. Those are obviously holes that you're gonna miss. But
there is potential for, and you mentioned this, for JTT, for Denzel Burke, for Jack Sawyer. You have a chance to return some really good defensive players. But as we saw even in the Mizzou game, your defense can be phenomenal. If if you have no offensive line and no quarterback,
and this is the thing that just grinds my gears.
And we can move into the actual Mizzou game. This is
what grinds my gears so much. And I said it on the episode before the game. Was this realistically is a game Ohio State could lose, and people need to not overreact and feel like the whole entire ship is going down. Because if you've watched a second of football this year, which a majority of the Ohio State fans on my timeline on Friday night had not, you would know Devin Brown ain't it. And if he was the for sure starter moving forward, you also knew Lincoln Kienholz wasn't it. And yes, it's Kienholz, not Kienholz, as the broadcast people kept continuously saying over and over and over, because he's a freshman. And I'm not saying potential-wise he's not better than Devin Brown, but he's a freshman. And Devin Brown was the second string, and we saw numerous times this year where he would come into the game, and both of us would look at each other in disgust, because it wasn't pretty. And so I knew going into the game, our offense wasn't going to look like it did with McCord. And I defended McCord all throughout the year, but I don't know if I said this for sure, but I've probably said it to you just in casual talking about the game. People were going to miss having Kyle McCord behind center against Mizzou.
Yeah, I mean, it's a downgrade. There's no question, but I guess I don't understand how you can go, hey, the sky's not falling. We knew that these two guys weren't it. Those are the quarterbacks on your roster, my dude.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But
how is that not concerning to you?
Because I
3 points.
I still feel like you've got Aaron Nolan coming in, which I would love to have him sit a year, but I still feel like
we know nothing about his college ability.
No, and it's the same thing we just talked about with Noah Rogers. His star status means nothing to me. It's all about what you can actually go out and do on the field.
So why would that result not be a concern? 3 points. You couldn't move the ball. The offensive line couldn't block anybody.
The offensive line concerns me. The quarterback, I can't picture a world. And this is where I'm not on the fire Ryan Day ship yet. I'm not on board with that yet. But here's where I will be.
Talk to me.
I watched that game because in my mind, I know that neither of those guys are starting next year. I don't know who is, but I know for a fact, and there's no way that you are Ryan Day leading a program like Ohio State and you have seen those guys practice. I'm not saying Lincoln couldn't eventually get there, but I've seen all I needed to see from Devin Brown. He's not a Division I quarterback to me. And so I look at that, and maybe it's the ignorance of being spoiled as an OSU fan, where I look at that and I go, neither of these guys are going to be starting for us next year. They'll be backups, which still concerns me if our starter goes down.
Sure.
But I can't picture a universe where Devin Brown is the starter going into next season. It feels like a transfer quarterback is coming in.
I mean, there's a lot of smoke around Will Howard from K-State.
Which I've seen that. I thought that there were chances.
Which I'll also say, does not solve the issue. He's fine. He would be an upgrade from Devin Brown. That is not going to save this Ohio State football program.
And I think I would even say he's an upgrade from Kyle McCord.
Well,
but
I saw a dumpster out back that is probably an upgrade from Kyle McCord.
Does not deserve the hate that he's getting. I will say that he is a talented quarterback. From a leadership perspective, I have questions. But I don't agree with the hate. I think, and it's easy to play this game, but I honestly think if McCord plays, Ohio State probably wins the Missouri game.
It
doesn't matter because bowl games are pointless unless you're in the playoffs. But at the end of the day, the thing that concerns me is the offensive line and the quarterback, which those are two very, very important things. But I think I kind of knew this was going to happen going into Missouri, and I tweeted it from the rivalry account. You can follow us again at RivalPod.
There it is.
But I talked about it early on. Ohio State was up 3-0, and I said the defense is only going to hold so long.
Yep.
The defense,
you did say that.
The defense, in my opinion, played phenomenal. They did everything you could ask.
They did
every single thing you could ask. But they can only hold on so long when you can't sustain a drive. You couldn't pick up a first down. And you were predictable.
I think that's the reason why I'm going to reiterate that this should be. And we were talking with somebody from on social as well before the game about how there's very few scenarios in that where you would be like, oh, this is awful, because it is, you do have a lot of starters on all that. But one of the things that was said was if they look just absolutely atrocious, that has to be a concern. And they looked atrocious because, and here's the thing too, we can say, okay, well, Kyle McCord, it would have been a different story. Sure. But that I'm going to put at some point, it's on coaching where you go, you're telling me that Devin Brown, first of all, that Ryan Day was advocating for him being in a battle with Kyle McCord into the season, which
there's not
even remotely close. And then that Devin Brown and Lincoln as well, both had at least a full, let's just take this season, forget years past, had this full season to develop, to get better, to learn, to grow, to develop. And you were afraid to have him throw much of anything.
Well, and that's what was surprising.
Like, that's a concern because right now, as it stands on Monday, those are the two quarterbacks on the roster.
Well, and to
Aaron
me,
Noland, yes, I get he's joining it. Yeah, Will Howard might come in, but what does that say about the development of quarterbacks? What does that say about the state of if Will Howard let's say he comes and he goes down. Well, now Devin Brown's in. Do you trust Devin Brown to win you a football game? I sure don't. At some point, that's not on the kids, and that's on development.
Well,
that's on coaching.
And I think some of it was
maybe
coaching.
Less time worrying about Lou Holtz's whereabouts, more time developing your quarterbacks.
Well, and I think I would agree with you on a lot of that. I think Ryan Day, I don't understand him at times. Where we walk into that game, and I didn't want to see Devin Brown touch the field. I don't care if you think he's the second best quarterback. To me, that was a throwaway game. I don't care. I'm fine with
you. Would rather let Lincoln go get experience?
1,000,000%, because to me, Devin Brown doesn't have a future at Ohio State. He's a backup for his entire career. He will go in against Youngstown State when we're up 63-4 or whatever. That's the games that he's going to play in. Lincoln could be the starter. And even then, I would still say Aaron Noland is set up for that. And so those were guys where, okay, if I'm going to see a guy next year, I want the guy that I feel like has more potential to go in and get the experience and get the reps. But the issue, and I won't even blame the quarterback that much, they both looked terrible. But Lincoln had a couple of throws that looked fine, that I was kind of impressed with. But there were numerous times, I mean, good Lord, 4 to 5 times right off the top of my head, where a guy came completely unblocked off the edge and just smacked him.
And it doesn't matter who you have at quarterback at that point.
No, when you're getting 2 seconds to go ahead and throw, it was like McCord at the end of the Michigan game with the last interception. Homeboy had 1.5 seconds before a defender was right on him to make a play. And I think one of the things that could potentially help Ohio State is I think Travion Henderson played that game to increase his draft stock. And it got absolutely, he did nothing because it's easy to game plan if you're Missouri's defense because you go Ryan Day's not going to
run.
Yeah, Ryan Day's not throwing it.
And also Missouri's defense isn't a slouch. They're not phenomenal.
No,
but you know if you can get pressure on a young quarterback, it doesn't matter that you've got Egbuka out there. Egbuka did nothing,
and that was their game plan. And you saw it happen the second that Devin Brown went out for the game, and Lincoln stepped in.
Yep.
They were okay. Well, we're going to blitz because we're either going to have to make him grow up fast or we're going to stop the run. And they absolutely did. And that's why our offense looked so stagnant.
I think of any player that could come back on the offensive side of the ball, Travion Henderson is the one that would help you the most. I think
the O-line has to get better.
But I'm saying, I'm not talking about Portal. I'm talking about guys on the team right now that could stay. And I'm looking at guys like Ibuka, guys like Henderson. I think Henderson is a bigger win for Ohio State if he stays than Ibuka.
I would agree with that.
And again, they're both massive pieces. I happen to think that Ibuka will go, and I think Henderson stays. That's based on gut more than anything else.
I wouldn't be surprised. I
think Henderson feels that he's better than he's showed, and now with a chance to get healthy.
Mm-hmm. And be for sure with the portal guys, with Chip leaving, Mayan being gone.
He's the guy.
He's
going to be the
go-to guy.
He's also made of glass, as is Devin Brown, and that's going to be its own issue.
Yeah, Devin Brown's, man.
Missouri wins that game 14-3, in case you were unclear on that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Do want to say a big thanks, by the way, again, to the J Company. Fall in love with your home all over again at the JAEcompany.com. Be sure that you're following on social media. It's at RivalPod on Twitter, on IG. We always talk about, is it Twitter or X? You know what we're talking about, the Bird app. Instagram, YouTube. Be sure to subscribe wherever you are listening right now. Let's talk about a game that took about 30 years off my life.
Can I ask an opening question?
Please
really
do.
Quick?
Michigan, Alabama. Michigan will win this game 27-20 in overtime.
How much did you poop yourself when in the final, minute of the game, Alabama is punting it to you, and I don't even know the jabroni's name, and he fumbles it, and it goes almost to the end zone. Like, it is inches from being a safety to lose the game.
So when they forced fourth down, I had started doing this thing where I would just like mute the special teams play. I used to do this all the time for field goals for Michigan because their kicking was so inconsistent. And then Jake Moody showed up and I stopped worrying about it because the dude is money.
Mm-hmm.
And James Turner has been really good this year. Not yesterday.
Yeah.
Now I'll also grant, I think the snaps were bad on both the missed field goal and the missed extra point.
The missed field goal for sure. Yeah.
So regardless, special teams though has been very successful for Michigan. It was not yesterday. And so, anyway, I muted it and Lindsay, my wife, kind of looked at me and I said, special teams has just been chaos. I just don't think I could bear to listen to it. Should something happen here? And sure enough, Thaw drops the ball. And how about, and Kirk pointed this out on the broadcast, how about the awareness of him to, despite making the mistake, to not just, because this would be your tendency, just fall on the football, which would have been a safety at that point. You know, once you bobble it, your natural instinct is, okay, the ball's on the ground, just cover it, don't let them get it. Well, that's the end of the game.
Yeah.
But the awareness to go pick up the ball and secure it on the half-yard line.
Inches, man. Inches.
I was sick to my stomach. Thank God there's no punting in overtime because I don't think
I mean, you didn't need it anyways.
This was a wild game, and you and I talked a little bit, which, by the way, thank you for not texting me during the game.
Oh, we have a rule. We have a rule with each other because you didn't text me at all during the Missouri Ohio State game.
Because
we understand.
We're gentlemen. We understand.
I hate that team, and I hate that he gets joy out of them.
Thank you.
But I also respect it. And there's a line that I just won't cross.
We did not text each other during the Ohio State game.
Nope.
During the Michigan Ohio State game, I don't remember if you texted me during the Big Ten championship. I don't think you did.
No.
I didn't text you during the
that's different.
I didn't text you because Iowa. Yeah. I didn't text you during the Cotton Bowl. You didn't text me during the Rose Bowl.
Nope.
And I see your goofy little tweets and stuff.
Which are just a troll.
And that's fine. That's fine. Here's what I can't stand is I got somehow placed on a thread with like other random people. Like a couple random Michigan fans and an Ohio State fan.
Is this on Twitter?
No, this was a text message.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Don't text me. I finally just muted the notification and just
they were pro Michigan.
It was a mix. It was Buckeyes and Michigan.
Absolutely not.
Text me.
I would yeet my phone
during this game. Good Lord. There's so many different angles to this game. I gave up on this game. When Alabama took the lead, when they took the lead 17-13, and then Michigan punted the ball back to them. So there's 12 minutes to go, and Alabama was nearing midfield. I had given up on the game. Because there was plenty of time left, but you could feel it. You could feel the whole pendulum had swung. And then Michigan makes a great play. They force a fumble. They get the ball back.
A heck of a play. And
then they miss the field goal. And there were about 3 different occasions where I had given up on the game.
You tweeted at me and said,
I said Ohio State's greatest win this year is Michigan losing to Alabama. And you said, are you conceding defeat? I said, no, but I'm not feeling real good. I don't really know where to even start with it, but hats off to the Michigan defense. That was probably the best defensive performance by the Michigan team, at least in the Harbaugh tenure. Maybe now, if they win the whole thing, you might even want to say ever. That was a defense that just simply refused to let Alabama put the game away. Alabama had at least 2 or 3 drives where Alabama had the chance to score a touchdown and put this game out of reach, and the defense just refused to let it happen. There were a handful of really good plays. They had 6 sacks in this game, 5 sacks in the first half, and credit to Alabama for adjusting. Saban talked about moving the pocket. They used Milroe's legs a lot more. They didn't let Michigan just bull rush and get there. But, I mean, those sacks still count. Michigan's defense did a phenomenal job in the first half, did a phenomenal job in the second half, even if the stats were a little bit less. They gave up nothing deep, which I thought was going to be I thought Alabama would get some chunk plays to Isaiah Bond and company. They really didn't give. I think they gave up 116 passing yards.
Yeah, nothing. And 60-something on the ground maybe to Milroe. And I don't know if it was even that much.
Obviously, the turnover and then the stand in overtime. I mean, just really phenomenal job by a defense that on a night where your offense sputtered for, not the whole time, but sputtered for probably 2 or 3 quarters, and where your special teams was just atrocious, your defense willed you to win. And the fact that you could play that way on 2 out of the 3 sides of the ball, right? If you want to look at it that way, that you can play poorly or at least play inconsistently on 2 out of 3 sides of the ball and still win a playoff game. I think that's a testament to how good this Michigan team really is.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. There are 3 things that stood out to me on this game, and you can check the receipts on this one, because when Alabama was up 17-13 with like 7 minutes to go and they had the ball, I tweeted out once they got closer to midfield, and I said, everything to me now, if I'm Alabama, is 4-down territory. Because in my mind, just getting 3 and making it a 7-point game was going to lose you the game. The way that I feel like Michigan's defense had played, the way that Alabama's offense was kind of starting to get a roll going, they had started to get a couple scoring drives put together. I felt like, and it's the same thing that I felt with Ohio State and Georgia last year, when Ryan Day went for it on 4th down. Kirby Smart called the timeout. Then he went back and he decided to punt it. That was the way. That moment right there is why they lost that game. Alabama deciding to punt it, and that point of the game to me is what cost them. Because, and it's a little bit different because Ohio State had a bigger lead, and I get making it a 1-score game and all that. If you give it up, they can go down and get whatever. I felt like it was a kind of what Michigan did to Ohio State this year. When you go out and they went for it on 4th down and they were like, no, they put their foot down. They showed aggressiveness and they played bully ball. And I feel like that's what I always think Alabama kind of is.
Yeah.
And that's what they've been known for. And I felt like this was your chance for Nick Saban, for Jalen Milroe to go out there and assert their dominance and to prove, no, we're going to get it. And to me, if they get that 1st down, if they keep pushing, whatever.
I don't know that I disagree with the call to punt it, though. Like I
don't think you punt it. I think you go for it, because I think.
But I'm saying I don't disagree with that, with Saban's call to punt there.
Yeah, and I get it. I get it. I'm just saying, for me, if I'm Saban in that moment, I'm going for it, because a touchdown in that situation with that late in the game wins you the game. And the other two points, this is kind of weird, because I feel like in any pivotal football game that I've watched in my life, you can pinpoint I don't want to say miraculous play, but a play that you stand up and you go, that is a play that I'm going to watch for the rest of my life when they talk about championship games. And I'm going to go to the NFL here for a little bit, because this reminded me a lot of the New England Patriots versus the Atlanta Falcons, when Julian Edelman somehow caught this ball that I still to this day have no idea how he caught. It was at that moment during that game against the Falcons that I said Patriots are going to win this game, because it just seemed like something like that is destined for a team that's going to win. And I know you're probably thinking I'm talking about the Blake Corum rushing touchdown.
I know the one you're talking about.
But the Roman Wilson, which to me, that saved your entire season.
Sure did.
Because
absolutely.
That play, and it wasn't as dramatic as Julian Edelman or anything like that, but I feel like
But anybody that knows football.
Yeah. The second that he caught that ball.
And I don't know, and for the record, I still don't know for sure. I don't know if JJ almost missed him high or if it was tipped.
I thought it got tipped.
I can't tell.
I thought it got tipped.
I thought real time that it got tipped. Looking back, it doesn't matter in one sense, but the ball ended up high. If Roman doesn't elevate and get that ball, it's over.
Completely contort his body to go and get that,
over.
It's over. It's an interception. And I looked back at different moments. You have the Julian Edelman catch for the Patriots. You have way back in the day with the Giants. I can't even remember the dude's name where he caught it right off his helmet.
Plaxico Burress.
Was it Burris?
I think so.
I couldn't remember if it was Burris or not. You have moments like that where when those happened in real time, in my mind, I knew that team was going to win.
Yeah.
Because those are the plays that need to be made for you to be able to become a champion. And when I saw that happen, in my mind, I did not care what the time was. I didn't care who was winning or losing. In my mind, I knew Michigan was going to win at that moment in time.
I wish I had known that also, because I did not.
Well, and had it been Ohio State, I would have felt the same. I would have felt the same way. But it's plays like that where I looked at Michigan and I thought, in the ultra conservative play for Alabama, I thought because I think that was the very next drive where Alabama punted it instead of going for it when they were at like midfield. And then the very next drive, I think, is when that happened.
It's all kind of a blur of emotion at this point. But
it was close. But I think those, to me, when both of those kind of happened back to back, I took a step back and I thought, that's it.
Those are, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I wrote down that this was a game of forgotten plays, because there was so much that happened. And you're exactly right. With 3 minutes to go in your own territory, down by 7, the call to go for it by Harbaugh on 4th and 2, 4th and 3, whatever it was, with an
100%.
With an offense that had, and again, McCarthy's numbers ended up being really good. Corum ended up having a really good game, but there were moments, and there was a huge swath of just sputtering by the offense. So with an offense that had sputtered for a lot of the night, with a full complement of timeouts, by the way, where more conservative coaches would have punted it and said, I'm going to trust my defense the way that they've played. Harbaugh said, and
that is the attitude.
Chips in the middle of the table. Let's go. Makes that play. Like, I think that can be easy to forget. What I'm calling Air Roman is absolutely a forgotten play, because if he doesn't make that catch, it's over. And the other one too is the Donovan Edwards halfback pass thing, where JJ drops it off, Edwards throws it, and it's just off. It's a backwards pass. If McCarthy does not catch that ball, and by the way, he catches it and then gets it off to Roman Wilson.
And gets smacked as he let go.
Number one, just to catch the ball and prevent it being from a scoop and score or a worse loss, or incredible, to get the pass off and prevent a loss of yardage, incredible. For Roman to catch, I will say, when JJ got up from that, I
took a deep breath.
Let's say that I took a deep breath and was very peaceful and calm.
I took a lot of deep breaths
when that happened. But just those forgotten plays where we're going to remember the highlight reel forever. And I said this, if Michigan wins this game, this will be on highlight reels forever. Obvious. The Blake Corum touchdown run in overtime. That is, and what a way to break Anthony Thomas's record as well. Like that it could not have been better for a more likable guy. That's just amazing. Absolutely. You love Blake. You know you do.
I respect him as a player, but I don't like anybody that wears that color.
Michigan, on the offense and special teams does not play their best game. Special teams was a mess. Offense had moments where they looked really great and moments where they looked terrible. Defense was just special last night. Michigan gets the win over Alabama 27-20. And now they get Washington. Washington survives Texas. High scoring game. Did I fall asleep late third quarter? I did.
I stayed up like an idiot.
The Rose Bowl took an emotional toll on me.
That's fair.
And I passed out.
I was too filled with rage, so I couldn't go to sleep.
Before I do comment on this national championship matchup, I do need to say one thing, and you're going to hate it.
I'm not listening. You go ahead.
Ohio State fans are embarrassing. They're embarrassing themselves. The number of Ohio State accounts last night, and again, it's not about rooting for Bama. Like anyone that's like, you shouldn't root for Bama. I was all in for Mizzou. Like that's part of it.
Roll Tide all day yesterday.
But what gets me is the Ohio State fan base continuing to scream about Connor Stallions or put an asterisk on this game.
Are you talking about my joke about Connor Stallions from last night?
What did you say last night?
When you sent a video of you running down your street with a Michigan flag.
That did happen.
And the
I'm not ashamed of that.
Was just
grainy as heck.
Pixelated. And so I joked and said it looked like I asked if he recorded it with Connor Stallion's iPhone 6, to which he was not a fan.
I was not a fan of that. But you know what? At that point, it didn't matter. You can't hurt me anymore. But it does. It just blows my mind that, and I think this is one of the reasons why, as a whole, it's not every fan, but as a whole, why Ohio State fans are just so unlikable, is you have gotten beat 3 years in a row by Michigan. Michigan has won 3 Big Ten titles in a row. You just got beat 14-3 by Missouri. And you're out here. I saw people talking about how J.J. McCarthy was terrible. How was he ever in the Heisman campaign? Michigan, like just all this stuff. Here's an asterisk on this win, which I don't know how, because that makes no sense.
Not on that.
On the Ohio State, I have Ohio State fans in my mentions. Michigan has just won the Rose Bowl, and Ohio State fans are on this free internet account talking about how the Michigan Wolverines will vacate their college football playoff wins.
No.
Which,
not
first of all, the NCAA doesn't control the college football playoff, and that's not even the dumbest part of that statement. Like, it boggles my mind. It's the kind of I used to pray for times like this meme. Michigan has won the Rose Bowl, and Ohio State is clinging to maybe they'll have to vacate a win. This is great. This is the happiest football, Jace, that I've ever been. It's in the almost decade I've been in Columbus.
Well, it'll change. Amazing. It'll change come Monday when they lose to the Washington Huskies.
See, and
never been a bigger Husky fan.
Again, and I respect that. What I don't respect is anybody that's still putting asterisks and talking. I love this. Hold on.
Can I speak as an Ohio State fan on that while you pull up whatever garbage you're pulling up?
Yeah, please do.
I agree with you. And
really?
I know that might shock you.
I don't believe you for a second, but okay.
And you know me, I have been a J.J. McCarthy hater. Even
I know you
after the very first play where he threw the pick, and
you told me on this podcast you'd rather have Kyle McCord than J.J. McCarthy.
Stand firm on that.
Do you?
You sure do.
Ryan Day does as well.
Sure do. I don't know how you watched that game last night and didn't think J.J. was great.
Yeah.
I don't think he was great against Ohio State. I don't think he was great against Penn State or anything like that. That was a game where I thought...
It's completely wrong, but okay.
I looked at that and I thought he played how you would expect him to play. And you can hate all you want. You can not like him. I don't like him at all. I can't wait till he's gone and I never have to hear about him again when he inevitably fails in the NFL. But I don't know how you watch that game. And then as far as the asterisk stuff goes...
It's sad. At some point, it's just embarrassing.
Believe whatever you want about them during the regular season when they know who they're playing. They didn't know they were going to be playing Alabama in enough time to prep anything.
Stallions has not been on the sideline.
But that's what I'm saying.
Since mid-October.
But that's what I'm saying.
It has no bearing on any game after that point. By the way, it doesn't have much bearing on the games prior to that either.
It does.
I don't get that.
It does, but I don't think you can discredit them beating Alabama. And so there's a level where your hate just becomes ignorance. And I think I'd like to think that I stay pretty balanced with my hate towards Michigan, but also just recognizing when a team is darn good.
I'll finish with these two things. One is from a guy named Matt Hinton. The other is from John Bacon, who's a pretty reputable journalist. I thought this one was good. So this is from Matt Hinton. He says, I cannot express enough how little I care about the Connor Stallion stuff. And this is and I think he's spot on here. Michigan is 39-3 the past 3 years with 3 straight wins over Ohio State and Penn State, and now a playoff semifinal over Alabama. If you think it comes down to a guy with an iPhone, you need to log off. He's absolutely right. And John Bacon, who is usually very reserved, very professional, says anyone who continues to claim Michigan's success is due to Connor Stallions is a stone cold idiot. And that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Michigan gets Washington in the national championship game. This game will be rematched in early October in Seattle.
It'll look very different.
It will look very different because
Harbaugh will be gone. JJ McCarthy will be gone.
You are a sad.
Quorum is gone.
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity.
We are like the same height. Get out of here. We are not that far off.
Michigan will face Washington in Houston. I would rather probably have seen Texas.
Well, yeah.
Texas can beat you a lot of different ways, and that's the danger with Texas. Washington does one thing really well. It's throw the ball.
Well, and what's weird is before last night's game against Texas, I obviously thought Michael Penix was a stud. Dude is a baller. He proved it all year. But he
probably should have won the Heisman.
But he did have games this season where I looked at it and I thought, that's not the same guy that I feel like I saw against Oregon.
Arizona State, Washington State, and Oregon State were all
subpar.
Just kind of okay.
They were all right. But then he has games like last night
and
where I go, I don't want to touch that.
Nope.
I don't want to play a single guy that looks like that. And I think I don't want to put the disrespect on them, but I'm still going to say it a little bit. If last night's game felt like the TCU Michigan game last year, where I felt like every person in America outside of Washington fans thought Texas was going to win that, and it would be Michigan, Texas.
Yeah, I did.
And the fact that Washington won, it feels like the championship game is going to be hindered now.
Well, look at
that. But I look at how Michael Penix plays, and I go, I don't know about that.
That is, I mean, the offensive line won the Joe Moore Award, which Michigan's had for the last 2 years. So the offensive line is phenomenal. Michael Penix Jr. is a special player. Obviously, Odunze and Polk and that offense are just lights out. So it's going to come down to, once again, I'm going to put a lot of stock in the Michigan defense.
Yeah, and it's going to be by far their biggest test, by far.
Without a doubt. I am really impressed with, obviously, like what they did against Ohio State's offense. Obviously, quarterback play is not remotely comparable, but the wide receiver core,
yeah, for sure,
very comparable. Jalen Milroe and Alabama with Isaiah Bond and company. That's a really big test for Michigan, and they passed with flying colors on the defense. So I'm going to bet my money, not actual gambling advice. Don't throw a fit; it's fine. But I would bet my money on. I will trust Michigan's defense to do what Michigan's defense has done all year. And I'll say kind of the same analysis of different teams, but I'll say the same kind of analysis I did when looking at the Alabama game, where I'll say, I expect that Washington will get their shots. Okay. You're not going to shut down that offense all game, but can you limit it? Can Michigan's offense also show up and play a consistent game? Texas had no issue running the ball against Washington. And I don't know that I would still say that that's Michigan's bread and butter. I mean, they far outpassed their rush game in the Rose Bowl.
I mean, Quorum, he had that great run, but he only finished with 80-something, 90 yards. I mean, which is still good, but it wasn't.
Michigan's a much more balanced offense than they've been in the past.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
They're good at a lot of different things, but can your offense play consistently? I expect them to play a lot better than they played against Alabama. At the end of the day, push come to shove, this I think Michigan opened as 4-point favorites. That will shrink. I think this is a coin flip.
What's your final?
I'm going to take the Michigan defense. I think it's a higher scoring game. I've got 34-31. I'm going to take Michigan.
Okay.
I think you're not going to stop the offense, but I think that Michigan's defense is good enough to limit it. And I think Michigan's offense has enough playmakers to get the job done.
I'm an idiot. I'm not that stupid though. I said it last episode, and I'm going to stand by it. Whoever won the Alabama-Michigan game to me was the national championship. That was the national championship game. Michigan,
so you're taking?
Michigan won.
You're taking?
I am taking Washington. No, I'm just kidding. I am taking Michigan.
You want to wear the Wolverine head?
You don't want to hand me that. You don't want to hand me that.
Please, just once.
You don't want to hand me that.
Think of
I will rip
think of you two.
Malachi loves that.
Think of you two.
Get that trash.
Wow.
Here's why.
I thought you were.
I would yeet that thing to the sun.
It's fine. It's fine.
I will throw that farther than Devin Brown could ever dream. We have.
It's like 20 yards, 25.
Yeah, 23 on a good day if I'm loosened up a little bit. If I've been throwing things already, then maybe. I do think the defense played well. I think this is going to be their biggest test. And it sounds obvious, but I think it's the best of both worlds. You kind of hit on it.
These are the two best teams in the country.
Jalen Milroe was probably the most mobile quarterback that they had faced.
Easily.
And I think Penix is a better version. And then as far as passing game goes, I would say Ohio State was probably their best test.
Thus far.
But I would say due to the quarterback of Washington, due to Penix's arm strength and his arm talent and their receiving core, I would say from that standpoint, Washington has the edge. So it's taking both of their biggest tests as far as a mobile quarterback and as far as a guy that can also throw the ball.
Washington puts it all together.
100%. But I don't trust their defense enough.
Yeah.
And I think... So to me, and I don't even think the gap offensively is that far.
No,
so
I think that's a
offensively.
great point.
Offensively, I'm giving the ball. I'm giving the check mark to Washington.
Yeah.
Defensively, I'm going Michigan. But I think because the gap is so wide when it comes to the defense and so close when it comes to the offense,
because Michigan's offense, despite sputtering a bit yesterday, that's not a slouch of an offense either.
No, not at all. And so I think at the end of the day, and I already said this on this podcast, but after Roman Wilson caught that pass, that was just insane. That's when, to me, it was, okay, Michigan's going to win it this year. Because it just feels like those little things don't just happen to any team. It happens to teams that are destined to win something. And it just feels like it. And I will say that I do, and this is a whole other conversation, I do genuinely think if you guys win it all, I think McCarthy is gone and I think Harbaugh's gone. And I think that's a realistic thing because to me, they would have checked all the boxes. They would have done everything they wanted to do.
I agree that McCarthy's gone. I don't think Harbaugh's going anywhere.
I could see it. I would say Harbaugh's less likely than McCarthy. I think McCarthy's 100% gone if you guys win that.
If he wins it,
if he wins it, I 100. I don't think he cares enough about the Heisman to come back.
No. How can you? I mean, he would go out and Harbaugh said this. If he wins the national championship,
Michigan quarterback by far,
and that's a wild thing to say because I think we have this reverence for the past and the Elvis Gerbach and the Tom Brady's and the Greaseys and all this. But also, how can you argue it?
No,
Kid would be 27-1 as a starter.
Mm-hmm. In my time being a fan of
15-0
of Ohio State,
I don't know how you could.
It's not even comparable. My final score: Michigan 35, Washington 24.
Your lips to God's ears, my friend.
I hope I'm wrong.
Make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening right now. Follow on social at RivalPod, and we'll see you after the national championship.
The Rivalry is a production of River Radio Ministries. Want live updates from the show? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at RivalPod. Visit our Patreon and consider becoming a patron for exclusive bonus content, merch, and more. And be sure to follow us wherever you're listening now for new episodes every Tuesday. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend so they can listen too.